Liz Gunn, your latest pieces of lunacy could be rebutted 6 ways from Sunday, but I'm just going to hit on a few of the key claims that you're anchoring to. I wasn't going to bother, since I've covered most of this already, but you're doing the repeat it till it sticks routine, so here it is again, even clearer, with a few extras for good measure. People clearly have questions, so I'm going to sit down and interview Calvin out myself soon, and you'll hear it straight from him, including a dive into his Freemason history. But for now, on with destroying Liz's lies.
We have a full spreadsheet. Every single cent that comes in is already on the spreadsheet. Every single cent will be accounted for, and not 1 cent will be touched until we have full accountants taking care of it and overseeing how that money goes out.
All your attacks are a distraction from one question. Where's the money, Liz? Not just the $600,000 taken in through the December 2023 Electoral Commission return, $40,000 profit, $11,000 in assets remaining, but the tens, maybe hundreds of thousands more taken in right up to July 2024, when you deregistered the party against the members' wishes. How was that $40,000 in those assets disposed of? Where are the follow-on accounts, the bank statements for all 3 accounts used to move money, including your ex-Tim Lafferty's, which also received loyal funds? Your entire defence is, it was audited. Auditors only audit what you hand them, and you've handed them nothing. No invoices, no receipts, no full look at any of the 3 accounts. The current loyal board, by contrast, can account for every cent, down to bank fees. You gave $70,000 to 2 ex-Winston campaign consultants for 0 results. You gave $17,000 to Logan Courtney's wife to help with living expenses, you say.
His wife kept saying, we can't survive, he's out of operation, he's not able to work, he's out of operation as far as money earning. Please, can you help us, Liz? And because I was going to hand NZ Loyal to him, I thought then he would be a good leader. I made a foolish mistake, and we gave him, I think, $17,000 of that $51,000.
All money given without board approval because you never installed a board, you never even held a single board meeting. But here's the thing, Liz. The vast majority of the money that you gave to Logan Courtney, which was actually about $14,000 in total, not $17,000, was received well before the election. So the claim that $17,000 was taken from the net profit shown in the December return is a lie. Logan was deputy leader and the South Island representative, with an electorate 300 kilometres away, meaning huge costs, travel, food, accommodation, flyers, signage. I spoke to him just the other day, and he told me he always had to beg you to have those costs covered, and that every dollar he did receive was for party expenses only. And by the way, he also told me that he strongly supports New Zealand Loyal under Calvin's leadership. He's already living New Zealand Loyal policies and values locally, feeding the homeless, caring for the elderly, working with community charities. He's a good man. So Liz, the $51,000 remaining profit is yet to be accounted for. It didn't go to Logan Courtney. That was fraudulent reporting. And now you're telling the Electoral Commission to hand Loyal's $83,000 allotment to you.
And as part of that, Carl, they are acting as if they have a right to the $83,000 that you will give to, you can only give it to the real NZ Loyal and to the real leader of NZ Loyal, which is me.
Can we assume you'd be spending that $83,000 with the same non-existent paper trail? Last time round, you had no treasurer, no board, no financial statements for the members to see. No one even saw the books, ever. The cash donation records, any of it. And that's why the new Loyal is pushing for a serious fraud office and police investigation. It's also why you're attacking the new leadership so hard. Reclaiming control of the party that you gutted and abandoned is the only way to bury this. So, where's the money, Liz? Isn't this the question that you can't answer? And the main reason for every diversion and every attack?
Alp is just not a presence. He was never part of the inner circle of Loyal. He was never part of the core of Loyal. And no matter how much he lies about it, he cannot carry through with this lie, because after 2.5 years of silence, I am standing up and saying the truth.
Calvin Alp was very much a part of the inner circle from the beginning. You gave him the title of New Zealand Loyal Strategist. He wrote the policies. He was the primary author of the policy speeches. This clip from Amy Benjamin confirms that.
Those speeches, those policy statements, were the result of a really beautiful collaboration between Calvin Alp and myself and Liz. Calvin and Liz identified the policies that they wanted New Zealand Loyal to stand for. And I was asked to help enunciate, explain, expound those policies. The three camps involved in their creation, Liz and her team, me, and Calvin, should be really proud of what we produced.
Your last video claims that Calvin's first appearance was offering to drive the forms to Wellington in early September 2023. But these 9 email exchanges between you and Calvin say otherwise. 8 of them sent by you to him, starting in early July, before the party even existed, consulting him on registration, on creating the constitution, which was ratified by frontline law, contrary to your claim, on campaign strategist contracts marked highly confidential by you. 3, where you ask his opinion on prospective candidates, asking for his thoughts on policies, how to answer people about coalition questions, and finally asking him to finalise the draft constitution. You wanted him finalising the constitution, and now you claim he wasn't even a part of the team? Yeah, what you're thinking is correct, Liz. You have just been outed.
He came in, he was not part of the central group. He came in and said, look, I can drive that through the night down to Wellington for you. All of your data, all of your names and addresses, your documents were printed off, but they were put in a sealed envelope. And what happened, we are sure now, is that he must have got to Wellington early enough to open that envelope, copy those documents, and that means the database, the confidential information that people had furnished to me as the leader of NZ Loyal. It's disgusting. And then probably buy another envelope that was sealed and put the same address to you and the team at the Electoral Commission and deliver it to you later that day. What they may have done is plump up their flagging numbers with some of the names of the original real New Zealand Loyal database members. And there's no way that we can check that until right things have been done. And by right things, I mean until I have been declared as the ongoing and continuing leader of NZ Loyal. There need to be actual criminal charges against Alp and Spira for major misrepresentation.
The audacity! My jaw actually dropped on this one. I know the truth because I helped organise those forms myself. Calvin warned you that electronic signatures would fail. He drove the forms down the moment that they arrived so that any rejection would happen fast enough to leave time for it to be fixed. Overnight down, rejected as he predicted, straight back up, got you on camera telling people to urgently hand sign new forms, and as soon as they came in, he drove them back down again and got them in with barely a minute to spare. And what's this sealed envelope business? There was no envelope at all. Just a box of forms that Calvin spent hours alphabetising with a spreadsheet on top. Nothing sealed, nothing secret. Remember, Lisa Williams organised the SGM, not Calvin and Hannah, as you keep claiming, at the disgruntled members' request after you deregistered the party in July 2024. They elected an interim board, which Calvin wasn't on, and they made it clear that their top priority was getting the party list and the accounts back from you. You returned neither. If Calvin already had the list from driving it to Wellington the year before, why would that whole exercise even have been necessary? And that same SGM led to the AGM that elected a new leader and board. You were self-installed, but Calvin was elected almost unanimously through proper process. You claim with total certainty that Calvin deceptively plumped up the numbers for re-registration using the stolen list, which you also used to boost counterspin, you say. But you can't confirm it until you're declared Loyal's real leader, right? Yeah, and you wanted criminal charges laid against Calvin for opening an envelope that didn't exist and stealing a list he never stole. This is actual defamation, Liz. And you won't lay those charges. I guarantee it, because you can't prove a lie. And it's not the first time you've thrown around baseless claims like this about the list. Last time you accused Logan Courtney of stealing it and handing it to Counterspin, another false public aspersion. The projection of it all, wow, it's rich. Given you're the one who used the list to pad your own accounts by your own admission, funneling New Zealand Loyal membership fees into Free NZ without members' permission. Many were outraged that you had assumed that you could take their upcoming Loyal membership fees and use them to fund your own personal media projects. Once again, a total inversion of the truth, Liz. Once again, accusing others of what you yourself were doing. And you're now telling people to write to the Electoral Commission, demanding that they check the Loyal re-registration list for names that Calvin supposedly added from his stolen list. The EC and IPONs, they don't get into internal party squabbles, and every name on that list belongs to someone who personally filled out, signed a form and agreed to become a financial member. You know that, because you can't just scribble names and addresses onto a form and submit it. The EC authenticates and verifies that the names are real people. But sure, do let us know when you find a name on that list without a signed form. We won't be holding our breath, so take your time.
I have been sent a letter by IPONS that the name NZ Loyal is mine. I have already been told by IPONS, you have the name.
Another flat-out lie. Only the application has been accepted. It's still very much pending, and next up is the hearing, which is why you've blurred out the following lines on your letter there, which explain that part. And if it's already yours, Liz, the name, why are you suddenly telling people to email IPONS insisting that you thought of the name and logo? That wouldn't be necessary if it's already been awarded to you. Do you even think these lies through before you deliver them?
We know he is a bankrupt. He is a bankrupt. He can't manage money. That's why he has projected that onto me. Al is currently bankrupt and has been bankrupt twice, 2013, the first time, and 2025. We have all the links we can send to you, Carl. He ran a gold mining scam that swindled millions out of unsuspecting investors. This led to his first bankruptcy. Alp also rented a home in Karaka in Auckland in the early 2010s. He did not pay his rent, and he left his landlord with a $48,000 debt. And that all added into his bankruptcy in 2013. And when the Stuff reporter was writing an article on him and what he's been doing, he had no idea about that. I sent that through to him. Surely the Electoral Commission and the Electoral Act must take into account that a person who is an undischarged bankrupt is disqualified from being able to run a party. If you can't run a business in New Zealand, how can you run a political party, even a stolen one? So, Carl, that's really, really important. He himself has no ability to handle money. He, it turns out, is a double bankrupt. He's a double bankrupt. I've certainly never been bankrupted in my life. So this man, in accusing me of money defalcations, is really talking about himself.
Calvin has never filed for bankruptcy, Liz. The state did, twice, trying to take him down. Contrary to your accusation, no $48,000 rent debt ever existed. There's no tenancy tribunal or court record of it because it never happened. And no millions were swindled in the Solomons either. Trust me, I've dug into both subjects far deeper than you ever have. The first bankruptcy in 2013 had nothing to do with rent, despite your claim. He'd just used a Māori passport, sparking his public stoush with Helen Clark at that time. He was doing intel work in the Solomons against attempts to install an Australian-New Zealand-backed puppet government. The IRD claimed he owed $1,700 and agreed to a payment plan. Then they ballooned that $1,700 to $146,000 in fees and absurd penalties within weeks. And they then filed a without notice bankruptcy application against Calvin while he was overseas and held him in it for 6 years instead of the usual 3. The second bankruptcy, just last year, that one was signed off by Judith Collins on her way out of politics. And it stemmed from Calvin's lawsuit against the police for a false arrest over a fabricated COVID breach, later proven and acknowledged by the judge as a false arrest. The judge, nonetheless, ruled police have no duty to verify their own information and granted them indemnity. His case was dismissed, justice was denied, and the police then billed Calvin more than $100,000 in costs. He refused to fund their corruption, so they bankrupted him instead. Hannah was travelling with him at that time, and she was never arrested or charged, which just goes to show it's Calvin being targeted again. And Section 80 of the Electoral Act doesn't list undischarged bankruptcy as a disqualification for party leadership. Your video, addressed directly to the head of the EC, demanding that he block Calvin's leadership over something that the law doesn't even prohibit, is pure arrogance. These weren't bounced hire purchases or failed business deals. They were punishment for decades of anti-government corruption activism. And you want to talk about debts, Liz? Plenty of people say that you owe them money. Like Ross Taylor, who flew over from Asia to provide you legal services. He never got paid.
And Samantha Costello, on behalf of Alp as his lapdog, every day claimed that I had taken money. I would never in any universe take someone else's money. I would never sleep. I just couldn't live with myself if I did that. I would never in any universe take someone else's money.
And bad money management? Try blowing $70,000 of members' money on 2 consultants who delivered about $200 worth of work between them. Calvin told you exactly that would happen. All this noise about Calvin's finances is just a deflection from your own financial crimes. Crimes that have you headed to court and hopefully to a cell.
We could have gone to somebody like Winston Peters and said, we have a large block vote, and if you want these voters, then you must agree to implement these policies. I said, why don't we turn New Zealand Loyal into a people's movement? And what we'll do is aim to get 1 million strong, and then we'll be able to approach someone like Winston Peters in return for his getting the block vote of the New Zealand Loyal People's Movement.
Well, once again, you've confirmed it. You wanted to feed the New Zealand Loyal voter bloc straight to Winston Peters. Your promise that Loyal would never amalgamate with an establishment party was a lie from the start. I've got ex-candidates on recorded phone calls saying that you told them it was never meant to be a political party. It was always supposed to collapse. You took people's money under false pretenses and admitted to document fraud and obtaining by deception, building a fake party just to harvest a database for Winston, confessing with absolute arrogance to intending to collapse it without telling members. That's fraud. Remember how you said, it's your party?
New Zealand Loyal will never, ever betray the trust of Kiwis. New Zealand Loyal is their party. It's our party, it's your party. It belongs to all of us.
Damn straight it's the members' party, not yours, never was. So obviously, not only was the party's money not for you to spend at your own whim, and not only were you not permitted to deregister without our approval, but you're also not permitted to gift the party to Winston Peters. Oh, and speaking of Winston Peters, remember the secret trust fund scandal funding his wine box litigation appeals over tax evasion, tied to the Cook Islands tax haven and that $100,000 donation from Owen Glenn? Well, that fund was set up by none other than Max Gunn, your own father. Yeah, kept that one quiet, didn't you, Liz? Turns out that fawning, suspiciously long 2023 interview that I talked about in my last video wasn't the whole story. This Parliamentary Privileges Committee transcript shows the Winston connection runs generations deep with you. And it was Daddy's friend you were loyal to, not us.
I am still the leader of NZ Loyal because there is a section which we'll put up here saying that any member of the board who resigns must resign in writing, and the leader of the party, Liz Gunn, is a member of the board. I never did a letter of resignation, but it was back here in the NZ.
Okay, so you claim you're still leader because you never sent a formal resignation letter. Right. Proudly screenshotting the constitutional clause to prove it, apparently missing the clause right beneath it. Once a new leader is voted in by a 75% majority, the old leader's role ends automatically. Kelvin's vote cleared that bar easily. So no, you're not the leader. You were replaced by vote exactly as the Constitution requires. And while we're on the Constitution, actually, the August 2023 draft proves that the 80% member vote to deregister was there from the start, before it was even filed with the Electoral Commission, not deceptively inserted later by Kelvin, as you've repeatedly claimed. Your own lawyer's email to you, dated 28th of August 2023, confirms the clause was already in the draft. And you then forwarded that same draft to Kelvin on 13th of September 2023, asking him to review it with Amy Benjamin. Once again, the record proves your allegation is false. And why do you keep saying you never ratified the Constitution? Members ratified the Constitution, not you personally. And it was done through proper procedure.
They were not a part of the inner team. The Man Alp has claimed that they were all his policies. That's nonsense.
Nonsense? Are you sure? Same titles, same wording? See for yourself. He authored every single one of those policies years ago, and now you're out there claiming that they're yours while at the same time accusing him of theft. He also wrote every teleprompter policy speech you delivered, draft first, sometimes with some input from Amy Benjamin where it improved things, and then sent it to you to read out.
I would write the draft speeches for these policy statements. I would then hand them to Amy. We would then go backwards and forwards until we got what we thought was a very good final draft. We then sent that final draft through to Liz. Liz would then do what we called the Lizification of it, where she added her own flavour into it. And there was a three-way, very good collaboration effort in the policy speeches, not the policies. The policies were already there. They were already mine.
What Kelvin never wrote, and never claimed to write, were your off-the-cuff tour speeches. And it shows. let's face it, what with the constant victim routine and the arm sling prop. You're accusing Calvin of stealing your party when he's the one who delivered what mattered most, the policies, the strategy, the connections, and doing everything that you didn't know how to do.
They have tried for nearly 3 years, through abuse largely, actually, of me and lies about me from Costello.
She had spent every single day for 10 months, every day across multiple platforms, deriding me and demeaning me and lying about me.
Again, with the Costello abused me every single day on every platform for 10 months, deriding, degrading, lying, vicious, vile, bullying. Oh my God. If this is true, then how come you've never produced even one screenshot of said abuse? It's a bit like how you accused Calvin of making 8 videos against you in March 2024, when you didn't even deregister or fall out with him until August, and he only ever made 1 video, well after you'd made multiple, all totally unhinged. You want to talk about viciousness, Liz? You made numerous videos where you were calling me words like that red-headed acolyte, that dog that pants at Calvin's feet, repeatedly accusing me publicly of having an affair with him and breaking up his family while he was with Hannah. Once even putting up my photo under a banner reading Sammy the Sleaze. None of it was true, of course. And all before I'd said a single word. And when I finally did speak, I stuck to facts, constitutional breach, missing money, all backed by evidence like financial statements. And it was only a few times between August and October 2024. 2 or 3 months max. I was overseas by the end of the year. It was long gone from my mind. And it wasn't just me that you went after this way. Many candidates got the same treatment. There is a trail of severed relationships behind you. And as far as my abuse, all you've ever managed to dredge up are a couple of comments, never showing any abuse, which you most definitely would have shown if it existed. And I stand by what I wrote. It was accurate, not abusive. And once again, a slew of videos from you against Calvin. One even called the Calvin Alp Files. And notice he hasn't even bitten back once. Yet you keep lamenting how dignified you are under all these attacks that are coming at you. It's like America and Iran. Calvin's Iran. Just minding his own business, and you're just dropping bombs one after the other and calling him the terrorist.
And ruin my name on the basis of the lies from Samantha Costello. She was his lapdog, and I can tell you, Carl, that from mid-2024 for 10 months, Costello was putting out daily lies every single day. It's incredible, Carl. He likes to dominate women. He likes women to be very subjugated to him, very submissive to him. And Samantha Costello, on behalf of ALP, as his lapdog.
Honestly, Liz, where's your journalistic integrity? Saying the kinds of things that you are. My fridge has more journalistic integrity than you. And it just sits there. And if you reckon that Calvin's after some submissive pushover, as you keep saying, hang tight. I'll have him answer that himself when I interview him soon. About how agreeable I am, how passive, and how I always do everything he tells me to. Just, yes, sir. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Samantha Costello left those messages for me. She left those messages with a third party. She kept saying to the third party, please get these messages to Liz. Have you got them to Liz? An audio recording by Samantha who insisted on the information being sent to me. And this is likely to snowball bigger and bigger over the coming months. Stuff.co.nz has the information.
No, Liz. As I have said, as I know you already understand, but I will reiterate, I was talking to someone who used to be a friend. It was a private conversation. I did not leave those messages for you. You are such a liar. If it was true that I'd insisted that you got my private messages, you'd have aired that part of the call too, no doubt about it. And naturally, you've blocked both me and Calvin from commenting anywhere, so we can't ever put your lies right. What kind of journalist refuses to speak to the subject of the video they're making about them and then blocks them from even responding? Certainly not one after the truth, only one trying to silence the truth. Liz, the gossip mongering and outright lying is gobsmacking. You lie so fluidly and effortlessly with such ease, like the way you're pretending that you haven't seen my response video and that you don't know the truth about the murder accusation and the 2 life sentences comment. Except you've referenced things that I said in that video, so clearly you've seen it, and I've found out from another source that you've seen it. I mean, you know it was nothing. I have fully explained the misunderstandings and the confusion that I was in at that time. You've omitted all the parts that softened my words, like, but I might be wrong, I haven't really looked into it yet, and stripped the context, that the 2 life sentences comment was my own opinion on mercenary work, which I then, I discussed with Calvin, who said himself that if he knew then what he knows now, he'd have joined the other side, that they were lied to. He was, 20? Or something like that. There's nothing here that needs investigating, and you know that. Playing these private voice clips on repeat, these little decontextualized sound bites, when you know my views have evolved drastically since then, is incredibly disingenuous. If I was to publish what you privately told me about Tim and many others, oh yeah, that'd soon turn into a full-blown scandal for you. But only a psychopath would do such a thing. We all have our moments where we talk with a friend and we're processing something, and it is absolutely sick to weaponize such a moment the way that you're doing. And now you're gleefully announcing that you're sending my private messages to Stuff. Not to the police, but to the mainstream media. Didn't feel the need to mention what you'd heard months ago before the pre-registration cut off to the police or anyone else. But sure, the tabloids need it now. Unbelievable. You can take the woman out of the mainstream media, but you can't take the mainstream media out of the woman, eh, Liz? You refused to talk to me before your first video airing my private call, because you knew that hearing my explanation would have killed the narrative that you were building. Because this was never about truth. It was always about a vendetta. Now, come on, you folded on Barry Young, vanished when he needed you, went into hiding because someone else's house was getting searched. I mean, you pulled the jab harm videos after one legal letter. You don't stand by whistleblowers. You are the last person qualified to lecture anyone on what they should say or do. Plenty of people, police included, think that you should be done for harassment under the new Stalker Act. I tend to agree, and I think I might just do that.
I have put out a few videos that have started to expose what I've found out from my journalistic research on him. I'm using all my skills as a journalist to help my country. That's what we do in wartime.
Liz, your methods are the antithesis of journalism. You are literally handed information on a plate and you still claim ignorance. But ignorance is only half the act with you. You've told both me and Calvin about how you use certain tricks to win people's trust, explaining how you tilt your head and lean in and touch them on the arm and smile. Same disingenuous mainstream media playbook as the props and the sob stories for maximum sympathy and martyrdom points. Investigative journalist, please. A magic 8-ball could out-investigate you, Liz.
I would go further. I would question whether these people have received some kind of payment from the government to do this, or was the deal that their court case and the charges in that court case from years ago would slowly disappear.
Now you're casting further aspersions because of how long Hannah and Calvin's court process has dragged on? That's because the process is part of the punishment. And now the trial date's been vacated again because they've stacked on more charges on top of the existing 14 years and $200,000 fine threat to drag this out even longer and bleed Calvin dry financially. You got concerns about Calvin? Fine. Investigate him privately first and properly, like I did, before going public. That man who was close to you, who sort of injected himself into my life in the last year or so and gained my trust, sure tried to force me to make a hit piece on Calvin and destroy him. Insisted that I did so. Threatened to, and I quote, destroy my life if I didn't make it. But as I said to him, I did the work. I did the research. I looked deeper. You didn't, Liz, and now you're making a public ass of yourself as a result. Lest we forget, you were preaching mask up, stay home, right before showing up suddenly all anti-jab at the Parliament occupation. Globalists is still your buzzword and you're still blaming the toothless whiff for everything. You clearly don't understand the space that you claim to lead. Either you're somewhat ignorant or you're a state asset. And after your recent antics, it's looking a lot like the latter.
I lived on a semi-rural, actually a very rural road. But what was worrying was, in order to be in that area, they had moved in to this country road, but not even really a stone's throw from where I lived. That was unnerving. That felt like I was being stalked. That was not nice. And they had planned, clearly looking back, they'd planned the theft of New Zealand Loyal.
Good Lord. Hannah found that house and told you about it, remember? And you said, oh, do come. That's actually how it went. You were thrilled at the idea of them moving close. You even showed up without invitation the day that Calvin and Hannah met the landlord to vouch for them and help seal the deal. Is this the stalking that you're crying about?
There's a fellow called Rob. He's a Dutchman. He is the right-hand man of Alp. Again, a very unsalubrious character, a very unimpressive man, a very dishonest man. And this man, Rob, is very like Alp. He's very arrogant. He's very unethical. Rob, who himself is like Alp, deeply questionable. I might say more about him another time, but I will tell you this. He was at the airport when Jonathan and I were beaten up. He stood by while a 63-year-old grandmother was beaten up by a policeman.
Ooh. I know Rob and his wife. Absolute salt of the earth. Everything you've said about this couple is untrue. Here's the truth. At the airport, he absolutely came to your defence. When the cop grabbed your wrist, he grabbed the cop's arm and he tried talking to him to try and de-escalate. And then the cop threatened to taser him and arrest him. And then his wife jumped in and physically wrestled that cop off you. Rob then drove you home afterwards, remember? Because you couldn't. And gave you a full affidavit backing you for your court case. Even put in $500 towards a new camera, the one that got broken in the scuffle. You didn't mention any of that, did you, Liz? And here's some of the other things that he did for you, free of charge. Repairs on your old house in Devonport so that you could leave and shift to Miranda. Then help you shift to Miranda. Sent someone to clear your yard in Miranda, pruned your trees, kept your lawns mowed, made you a veggie garden and a chicken coop, built a wall of shelving units, a bookcase, a filing system, cleared your garage of rubbish and set up an office in it for you, with a desk and a lamp and a rug, paid for your son's numerology course, arranged gas bottles to keep you warm in winter, gave you chairs, installed a UV unit for fresh water, a bed for your son, and built you a beautiful native timber commemorative dinner table, a team effort with Calvin actually, with a copper plaque on it. Remember that said, ironically, New Zealand Loyal Inner Circle 2023. He erected New Zealand Loyal signage at Snell's Beach, Warkworth, Waikato. He was the one that provided you with Sinead as a bodyguard on the tour. Drove many times to your house to bring you food when you had an emotional breakdown. Loaned you nearly $4,000 for rent, which you never repaid, of course. And you have the nerve to call him unethical and to call other people grifters. And his wife, she gave you huge emotional support. I remember you telling me about it, especially through your relationship troubles. And she cooked for you and looked after your every need throughout the tour. You used to call them both earth angels, and you were right. You called me that too, once. But now we're all just dark entities for the sin of questioning the Great One.
I did feel that something very dark surrounded the light during the tour. I felt some dark energies coming in, and we know this is a war of light and dark. So I shut it down, partly because I felt disillusioned with the system, but actually primarily because I felt something very evil was going on. Really, if I had to sum it up, it would be summed up in this scene from The Lord of the Flies. And in the middle of one of those dark nights of the soul when I was going, I feel I'm losing this country. We're all losing the country we love. Out from the darkness came these letters, and it was clear and bright and golden, and it was loyal. Loyal. And I went, loyal. Loyal to New Zealand. Loyal to the people.
Your evil imagery use, Liz, quite something. Painting Calvin as evil incarnate and yourself as golden word from God, good. Suddenly born again Christian, despite openly consulting a tarot card reader before the last election regularly. Phony. Doesn't even begin to cover it. The same energy as your photo choices. Decades-old glamour shots of yourself in your recent videos, while your own wee lapdog, Jonathan, trawls frame by frame through videos to get us at our worst. It's actually quite hilarious. But two can play at that game, Liz. As I've shown today, there's been so many lies that nothing you say holds any weight anymore, Liz. Your story mutates with every episode, new anchor points added whenever the last one collapses under scrutiny. Sticky tape over the cracks, rinse and repeat. You're a disgrace, Liz. The scale of your lying is staggering. Plenty of people think that you should be sectioned, and I agree. But I also think that you know exactly what you're doing, and you're just plain old compromised. You're throwing as much mud as you need to get your hands on the EC's money and keep Loyal out of contention. Because its policies are lethal to the status quo. They would break state control and let people finally get ahead. The state doesn't want that, and you, Liz, are its faithful minion to make sure that doesn't happen. Those who blindly believe you have no discernment, no interest in truth. It's cult mentality, zero fact-checking, just consuming without question, just glugging it back because it feels so good. The same type who sigh that Loyal is done now because it's just all too messy, and who bleat, a small party can't win without making a coalition with an establishment party. Nonsense. It wins if the people show up en masse and vote. Look, they wouldn't be working this hard to bury Loyal if it weren't a genuine threat. We saw what it did. It just soared last time. Imagine where it would be if Liz hadn't deregistered. And that's the point. And this is a continued, concerted, coordinated effort to poison the public against a party that the establishment very much does not want inside those walls. And what Liz is running is straight out of the Colin Moyle playbook, actually, that from the 1976 Moyle affair, where Muldoon character assassinated him with total lies. But by the time they were cleaned up and disproven, the damage had been done. He'd been kept out of Parliament and he was finished. Same tactic being used here. Liz genuinely doesn't care if what she's saying is true or not. And she doesn't even really care if you know it's not true, just as long as it does enough damage to keep Kelvin out of Parliament. The powers that be clearly want us to quit, retreat. So we don't. Remember back when we began this journey at the Parliament occupation with the call of hold the line? We knew this was about our kids' futures, and no other party genuinely independent of the establishment has the policies or the spine to follow through on them. So keep giving it your best shot, Liz. But you've badly underestimated the intelligence and the resilience of your targets. The state has already spent decades trying to destroy Kelvin, taking everything they could from him. He was a rich man once, and he still would be if he hadn't chosen the fight over the fortune. And here's what people like you seem to forget. A man with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous man there is. He's the one that they cannot control.